I'm supposed to be illuminated now. That's what I'm being told.
Oh, you got handlers?
I have a handler. Yeah.
That's fantastic. You
Who
deserve it, buddy.
who's
You
saying
deserve it.
that who's saying, listen, people actually want to see. They don't just want to hear you. And I said, who?
You know, you're a fantastic. Yeah, I've learned though, if I've learned anything in this pandemic is that you're a fantastic interviewer, and I've really enjoyed the shows that I've watched. I like, I've just been like, you got me in the
You're
questions that you're asking, and
you're involved?
I'm involved. There's so many things that take your time in a pandemic, but this one in particular has been a very good excursion during the pandemic. That's for sure. And
Thanks.
I really enjoy your interviewing style. I like the direction that you take people. That they probably, and I'm excited and a little scared about where I might take things. Or where you may take me, but I will. I thought to myself, I'm like, well, you know what? Maybe people will like they might know me as like oh, Chewy's a good guy. He's a good guy, but I'm also an honest guy. So I don't know where you're gonna take me.
Well, I mean, I definitely like to keep you honest. That's what I'd like to think. You know, we're here. We're out here.
Yeah, we're out here.
We're out here. Here in the utility room, we've dug deep with a metaphorical shovel to unearth the awesome sauce of raving, electronic music, and beyond. Many of our sessions have had a spotlight on a genre that I'm especially fond of, breakbeats. In Toronto, this musical style raged across dance floors in the mid 90s and early aughties. Tonight, we are with a DJ who was one with the force of breakbeats and became what could be described as an instant hit or phenomena. Ravers would unite to his spun sounds, train spotters would weep, and the mixtape sales would dwarf most of the other jocks. It's with super joy that we welcome to the utility room Big League Chu.
Great to be here.
Stoked to have you with us tonight.
Yeah, so excited. Good to see you.
Have you been like doing lots of episodes? Was there an episode that happened that was like, oh shit, y'all went there?
Which one of the Dan ones? Which one of the demonics?
you know,
You
yeah.
know,
Hey,
the man. If to be truthful, listening to Dan, I'm like everything he says, everything that he's talking about is like bang on, and probably probably because of his state at most of the parties, probably the most accurate
so
of what actually went on. I was Dave Sadler was over the other day for lunch, and I was telling him about the show, and then he was like, "Oh, just tell me about some things that go on the show." I'm like, "Well, Josh is a really good interview. He really takes people." He's like, "Yeah, I've seen some of the clips," and then, you know, uh, he's like, "I didn't," I started telling him some stories that Dan had talked to you about, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that." Like that was like quite the Jose stories, or some other stuff that went down, and he's just like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that." Or the mystery DJ who may have killed the government gig that Dan had, right? Like, and I was like, "Who was that?" So that kind of thing, so he tells it as it is, and I think we're on the same lines in a lot of cases on how things are, or how they were up to 2011 when I left.
there are definitely some like moments that happen with some of the guests after the show ends. I've tried hard to be like the idea is romance. It's a romance show, right? I'm not going to say that we haven't
Mhm.
had content that's been, you know, it's gone there, but I mean, predominantly I'm absolutely uninterested on who you've had sex with or how you've partied or where. I mean, like we can
Yeah.
talk about it, which is fine. Like I'm not saying it's not a discussion. It's there. It's just I don't know. There's so much of that out there that when I want to think about insight, I'm sitting down talking with Big League Chu. It's been how long since you've touched a mixer? How long has that been?
Probably, I think Lee's Palace, maybe 2011, maybe 2012. I
So
mean, I
we've got
have
a
picked it up to move it
decade.
in the basement.
It's a decade of time. You got this massive passage of time that's happened, and I think to myself, wow, in this instance, we can really get some recollected memories. We can really go through
Yeah,
it, and for sure, like had we talked about it while it was going on, your answers might have been in a certain place. Your perspective would have been like,
absolutely.
I'm here. And then perhaps, after it passed, you might be like, I think I was there. But tonight, I think,
Yeah. No,
how
totally.
how did Breakfest start?
Breakfast started. So, you know, I was lucky enough to be involved with Limelight, and that was just a fantastic boost to my career. You know, the Wednesday nights at Limelight, you know, everybody was there, everybody wanted to be there, and you know, the opportunity to play with, for to have, one of your idols, Johnny, and Craig Pettigrew, to come up, and to say, you're standing in line trying to get into this club, and then all of a sudden you're playing this club. So that's the big amazing thing for me with Limelight. But then, while playing on the patio at Limelight, that's where the Breakers went, right? That was kind of our hangout, and you know, just I was approached one day by Patrick or Fatrick in France, Matteo. They're the guys who wanted to start this thing called Breakfast, and they're like, yeah, we're thinking about having a night. It's going to be all breaks, and we're thinking about throwing it. We got a venue. We want you to be the headliner, like our resident DJ, and this is what we can pay you. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't like, sure, sounds good, like let's give it a shot. I've always been kind of like, just let's give it a shot. If it works, it works. Especially in those early days, you were just trying to launch different things and try different ideas. And so I thought, well, these guys will probably last like let's see how it goes. And so
You had a timeline
uh
already going in your brain about like how many.
Well, I didn't have a timeline until maybe the second time, the next week when they showed, or next week or 2 weeks later, they showed up at Limelight and they're like, "Hey, man, look at our flyers." And they're like these like black and white photocopy flyers, and I'm like, "Oh, well, yeah. I mean, these look okay, I guess, right? I'm at Limelight. They got the slick flyers and the weeklies, and I'm like, okay, well, I think, And the funny thing about those guys, they were like, yeah, we got this strategy. Yeah, we don't want jerks at the party. So like we have like two flyers. We have like two or three flyers. So I would see them after certain gigs, and they would have like multiple flyers for other people's parties. And when people asked them, they would like look at the people and think, okay, I don't want this person at my party, and they would give them like a flyer for another party. And then for the people that they thought were really into breaks, they would give them, hey, check out this break fest flyer. So I was like, I don't know if there's enough breaks to go around in the city, right? To be picky and choosy about who you're trying to start a night, guys. Like, I don't think you got the right to choose. And so lo and behold, their first party, they got a lot of people, but I didn't think that they would have the sustainability to maintain a thumping Sunday night. And what was nice for me was that, as many people may know, I work at a hospital, and one of the locations that I worked at back in the day, 20 some odd years ago, was just across the street from the Combo. So I would work maybe an evening shift, get off at 11:30, take my bags, walk across the road, and at midnight be on stage, right? So it was, and at the Alma Combo of all places, right? So it was amazing opportunity, and just the memories that come off of that night. A night that was, I think, probably one of the first like successful all breaks focused kind of night. Consistently we did very, very good numbers on a Sunday night for like breaks. Like I can understand Sunday night for house or Sunday night for, genres that could probably support that, but to have a night on a Sunday for kind of a genre that was a little bit smaller was quite exceptional, I would think.
It's we think about what might be a fire night. Like when nights first start, typically it's not crazy. I would say if something starts really crazy, perhaps it doesn't the trail off is kind of it's got
Yeah,
a downward descent. Like that slope doesn't look awesome, but it seems like it goes the other way with momentum on nights that are sticking around, and they stick with it. It's growth, 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 growth.
yeah.
But Breaks Fest was like,
And it was the worst sound system, like the worst stuff. Like the worst, like those sound engineer guys, like I don't think they, it was like probably Sunday was like their night night off.
we've
But
talked
even
about
the
this on the
equipment,
show. I
the
mean, most
equipment was the worst.
most of the
Like,
sound guys, especially at the Alma Combo, I mean, you're dealing with dudes, who are doing, I'm assuming, rock or jazz,
yeah,
maybe funk, or and maybe, I don't know. We'd have to ask Franz. Maybe Franz brought his own crew, and I think I did talk to him about this, and I can't remember what the answer was, but I do know that there was tons of rock soundboard engineer control
yeah.
guys that were constantly dominating venues,
Oh
and
yeah.
that they
There
just
was one guy, I forgot it. He's like, we used to call him like Ice T. He looked like Ice T, but he looked pissed. But apparently they're like, I think he likes the music. I
did
don't know.
was he into it? Was he sincerely about it? Because that's what I was about to say. Is that it seemed like it was like this was a thread. It would be like different area code, same dude. Like it would be like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
guy. You know, it's got salt and pepper hair, kind of down to here. A little
those
curly or,
guys.
or, or frayed, and just not about it. Be like, I
No,
need some monitors up on stage. He's like, why?
you
it's
know
like
what?
it's like, what do you mean why?
To be honest, to be honest, when you mentioned that, I do remember them like, at certain points running around with some urgency. I mean, there's so much shit everywhere, anyways. I don't know why they're running around to fix something that's gonna be shit, anyways.
You mean in
But
the Elmo or just?
they, yeah, at the Elmo, like like all of a sudden, like, oh, I gotta go and run off and check something, and like, oh, wow, did he fix something? I can't tell. I don't know. Like it seemed like sometimes they looked a little like they were doing something out of urgency, but maybe it's something that maybe they were just trying to save whatever was left of the sound system. I don't know. But I mean, Breakfast is a great launching ground, I think, for a lot of people. I think it was like a clubhouse for a lot of the breaks DJs in the air in the scene, right? Like, if if you wanted to see, or you for at least the DJs from a DJ perspective, if you want to kind of like know where all the guys are on a Sunday night, you could find us all there, right? Where I mean, I was playing all the time, but like whether they were playing or not, they were all checking in. It was kind of a clubhouse, right? But so I think for us it was a nice little home, and it lasted for quite longer than I thought it would. That's for sure.
What happened in London? Can you bring us right back?
Okay, right back.
What was
So,
what was what was the vampire bite?
so I think my like, how did I start DJing, or
Yeah,
like,
where were you
yeah,
at, and what were you doing when you felt that bite, and you knew, like, this is what I want to do.
yeah.
I want to get a mixer. I want to get turntables. I want to get more vinyl that I could shake a glow stick at, and I want to be out there sharing my music with people.
It's funny. It was kind of like, I was in university in residence, second year, and these two girls, Jen and Monica, they were like, "Hey, what are you doing New Year's? You're going back to Toronto?" "Yeah, yeah, I'm going back to Toronto. Um, you got to come to this Pleasure Force rave, Pleasure Force 94, 95." And I walk in, everything's just like chaos to me. It like doesn't make sense. Not my musical style. I mean, I like all kinds of music. I've had all kinds of, like, deep love for classic rock, classical music, like everything, heavy metal, like rap, obviously, and electronic music. But at that time, I wasn't really into electronic music, didn't really get it. Walked in, walked around. After a couple hours, I'm like, oh, everything makes sense. And that person has everybody in the palm of their hand. And that's what I would love to do. And, that summer I got a great job in Toronto, and I had enough money to be able to buy turntables. So then, take that back to university third year, and start like learning the craft, right? I was thinking about it actually, going to play the record, in in Toronto. My first time, I remember my first time going to play the record, and I go to like, and it's the same idea with that Dan's been talking about. Like, I don't know exactly what it is I'm looking for. I know the sound. I don't know what it's called. Right? I don't. It's it's like that boom, 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 that. That thing. What's that called? Right? And you just.
Because there was no name for it at that point when you were like what was the presence of it at that point?
I just.
Hardcore,
I wasn't
or
around
hip
enough
hop.
people
I
that.
mean,
Yeah, I think at that time I was kind of like, I know the sound that I like, but I don't know what it's called. I don't know if it. And then someone told me, they're like, oh, that's breaks. Like that's called breaks. And
which is
so
funny because I think to myself like, what was electro? What was breakdancing? What was
yeah, but I think I think someone had said, that's breaks, and like that's a genre to me. That what you're describing is the actual genre of breaks, not like that everything, that there's breaks that precede it and there's breaks like the beat itself. So I go into to play the record, and I'm like, look, you're not gonna ask anybody to play anything and show you. You're gonna take the records to the back because you're a newbie. You don't you don't walk in to play the record and just kind of ask people to play stuff for you. It's too daunting, right?
Did you
So I go
feel
to the
like you were
back.
getting sized up when you were walking into the record store? Was like those initial visits were you feeling that pressure?
Oh, oh yeah, like come on, like I think you have like you walk in and it's like either like Dave Cooper or Marcus behind the controlling who gets to play what, and then you're like, oh, I'm gonna play. I don't even know what this is. Can you just put this on, right? So I go to the back. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna look at this. Okay, these things looks like, and nothing is really filed properly anyway. So like, okay, like these ones look interesting, and I pick up this one, and it's do you remember that label Smile Communications?
Sure, of
SM,
course.
and it was like yeah, right. So there was one.
Absolutely.
It was like it was a double pack. So I go pick it up and I go take it to the back, and I'm like, it's got like electroliners, loose caboose. Everyone thinks I'm high, and I am. Burn the elastic, like Viva House, like all like breaks classics on it. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna pick this one. It's a double, and like I think 12, 12 tracks. I think 10 are gold, right? Like, and so I'm like, oh, this is cool. I got this, and then I pick up like I think it was like a couple other records, but they only have like, to me, I was like, oh, these ones only have like track. And so I thought, this is pretty easy. Like I can go, and for the longest, so I go back to London, and I'm like, just going back and forth on these 1 and 2 records. I can just mix these forever, and then basically have a set. But like, I thought, for a long time, I'm like, wow, record shopping isn't that hard. It's like if I can buy a record that has 10 to 12 gold pieces on it. But I soon found out digging was a real chore,
Yeah, yeah,
and
that's right. Those lotteries don't happen all this. Like, it seems like the reversal ended up happening. Where you'd be like, "I love this song." Be like, "Colin, there's 10 other tracks on there." Be like, "Fuck those tracks. I'm never listening to that one song, man. That one."
yeah. So yeah, but yeah. So then I really crafted in London, and right there in London there was a lot of like there was a big kind of a cliquey rave scene that was starting there. That was kind of an offshoot of like Better Days. But then other people were starting their things, like Daybreaks was starting their stuff there. for that kind of culture that was coming straight off of that. I think, yeah, I would say like that Better Days vibe. I think Stu was doing stuff down there. Matt C was down there a lot. Johnny was down there a lot. And then Czech was coming in a lot. So from there, they needed guys to fill in bills. And then guys that were coming out of that area were like Capital J was somebody that we came up at around the same time, and we were like in that same neighborhood. Melting Man was around that time, and then obviously the big gun in the area for like a little bit of everything was Everfresh, DJ Everfresh. So not the jungle
Everfresh
DJ,
came out of London, Ontario as well.
Not the jungle DJ, but DJ Everfresh, like the hip hop. He's still quite busy with doing stuff, a lot of stuff. But
there
a
was
lot of
two
Twitch
Everfreshes
stuff.
now that I remember.
Yes,
I can't remember.
Yes. So Courtney was his name, and is his name, and yeah, he's still doing his stuff on Twitch. But he's probably like the one guy who I think who most people appreciated as one of the greatest like London DJs that didn't get that massive hype in Toronto. But yeah, definitely he was coming out of there and doing shows back and forth. But mostly Jay and I were the guys who I think people would say like made it out, right? And then there was like a lot of hype around. I think both of us, like when I came back to Toronto, I think there was a lot of hype around. Oh, there's there's a guy coming from London and he plays breaks, and that's all he plays. Like and so I think that there's a little bit of a mystique around before I came into Toronto and like started like basically moved back to Toronto. So that was nice, and there were some people that were really key, and I did want to give a shout out to somebody that's going through a hard time right now, and her name is Tammy, and who was very instrumental in kind of pushing probably her and another guy. Shay, who were kind of probably pushing things in Toronto as well for me, and mixtapes, obviously mixtapes for I was like, mixtapes make you, right? Like that's what gives you, and a lot of people had my mixtapes, and I would just give it to them, and they would stay at after parties giving them to people, right? And that's how you get it around, right? And then positive, tribe, this probably positive tribe. Reviews don't I mean, obviously that doesn't hurt at all.
The mixtape review column, it seemed to be like that was the best way to break out if you were an unknown DJ, if you were someone that wanted to play. And because it's all ultimately transformed right now. Right now, if you are able to go ahead and create something that dazzles many, regardless of where your skill set is at, that is enough fuel. It's enough to get you on stage and or several stages. It's irrelevant on the presentation style. It could almost be start and stop with microphone introduction or outro and introduction, for example. That would be the bridge. This is obviously, if we were to take a time machine 20, 25 years back and try and explain it to somebody, either a promoter, a DJ, or punter on the dance floor, it would probably be met with a form of like one of these, like, wait, what? What are you talking about? Be like, we're going to put a DJ up there and they're going to talk to you through their set and then probably not really mix. And you'd be like,
yeah. What the? It's amazing though. Even you go through this transition where the mixtape is like for the partiers your Bible, because you can't hear those songs anywhere else, right? Like who's got, especially those days, right? Like MP3s were not being tossed around, right? So it's like, well, that's on that tape, and because that DJ has that record, right? So it's a little more, like, well, I know John's got it because it's on his mixtape. So when I go see him, like I'm gonna ask to play that song. You may not know the name of it. You know the song that goes, John, can you play that? Right? Like, or the one that's got the hamster noise in it, right? Like, and he's like, what the? But it's one of those things that the mixtape was so key to, I think, a lot of our careers. And just a powerful tool to kind of promote yourself. And yeah, but then the reviews themselves, like if some kid was going to spend $10 on a mixtape, you better look at Tribe to go see if it's any good.
Right. And we had to make Dan dance, which was like the ult like
Yeah.
that's not easy. Like so
you know, yeah, he's really what struck me is like I'm like, do I, the feeling when you got that review and you opened that Tribe magazine, you saw that everything's going to be okay. Dan gave it a good review,
it was
right?
there was definitely a value there. It makes me think, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Techno, short for technology, this progress. So we're talking about how it was, and that for sure at that time worked there and then. And for a moment, I was being very troll like, saying, "Oh my God, there's humans up there that are unable to go ahead and, they're lost. They're not lost in the studio, but they're perhaps or what we might describe as, you know, the skill set for the mix and the session for the set to tell the story might not be there." But then again, maybe it doesn't need to be. And
Yeah.
well, because the audience isn't wrong. And so this
No.
audience is ramming these venues for some of these performers that, for example, I no sense in naming names. That's silly. And it's not because I'm afraid. I'm just, what's the point? I say some stuff I've got feelings for, some stuff I don't. I obviously would prefer to go and see Mixmaster Mike over a trance DJ, thinking to myself that I'm probably going to have a much better time watching that show, listening to what's happening, seeing the creation, and having that. I find that there's a value there. Someone over there though is saying the opposite of what I'm saying, saying, "Well, that trance DJ, I'm getting the exact same thing out of
Yeah.
it." So we're talking about the perspective of it all, and I'm the asshole in the utility room, so.
Well, I mean, for me, I was a mix guy. Like the quality of the mix, the for me, I would, for instance, like I was very tight with what I released because I was very critical of myself. And you probably know the same thing where you're sitting trying to get a mixtape right, and you're on minute 44, minute 45, and you're like,
And something goes wrong.
and
So back then you'd have to start over from the beginning, right? I mean,
you ran that tape
yeah,
back, and you're gonna do it
it was
again.
in
Yeah.
real time. That's right. So I mean, how many times were
But your
you?
skills got better for it, though, right? Like
Sure, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. But there's tons of frustration in the process as well. How many mixtapes or blank cassettes did you turf because they're like,
oh yeah,
"Fuck
yeah,
this thing."
not good enough.
There is some instances of where I'd run out of tapes, but I needed it so bad, so I'd just re-record over whatever the fuck was there, right? Because so I could get the set out and get that mix happening, right?
Yeah.
It's wild. Your mixtapes were incredibly popular. Like it was one of those things. It was like this was almost like the thermometer for breaks. It was if the new mixtape came out, whatever that was going to sound like, you knew that for the next season, that's what breaks were going to be. Did you ever feel that you were in that place,
I,
that you were in that position?
yeah, I really felt. I mean, I will be honest. Like I like mixtapes to me for at least, I think the first batch. I think all through is just you're basically setting the tone for what it is for almost the way I see it is like almost like your tour. Here, these ones are probably going to be hits. Well, they are going to be hits, and and it's going to be you're going to know them now. And then when I drop those specs within a set, it's almost like my album or something like that, and the people are waiting for the hits, right? So or like you've got filler, and then all of a sudden they hear, oh, here comes that track that I love, number 4 on the whatever on the whatever mixtape, right? You know, I felt that I don't know, I felt a strong sense of curation, right? Like curating, like spending time really thinking about what went into mixtape, and not just putting things out for the sake of putting it out, because I've always thought about like the bands, like, you know, older bands that I look back on and I listen to live sets and I think like, okay, well that, you know, or like just how history perceives the artist, right? And it's very important to lay a good foundation of where it is, like of when people go back and listen, that they'll be like, okay, that still holds up or whatever, right?
Do you still listen to your mixtapes?
Uh, I have, yeah, I have. During the pandemic, I would say I have, because I found stuff. I found, you know, to be honest, I was out. I was totally out of everything for a long time, and just
I
kind of
want to
like that
get
part of my
there.
life's over.
It's
Yeah.
it's the question after this question, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, but the reality is, it's not a, you know, it takes time, I think, for people to kind of walk away and then kind of appreciate what was done in that time, and I think things like pandemics, not that we should have many more of them, but they cause you to kind of analyze and look back. I'm a person that, if you know me, I'm a person that's like, on to the next thing. What are we doing
I
now? Like,
appreciate this.
and you know, and but sometimes we don't look back, and when you are forced to look back, you kind of like that. Like, but the thing is, I do look back, but what I try to do is I keep my head down, kind of keep going and doing all this kind of interesting stuff. And then when you look back, you're like, oh, like all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, I did like all this. Like, it's quite amazing. But I think that it takes, like, you know, for this piece, I didn't look up. I didn't look back. I mean, until like recently, and just kind of like, yeah, I should. You know, and other people, you know, I have a neighbor here who does a Twitch show. Rich Hope. He's a DJ from Montreal, but he just lives around like behind me, and he's just like, "Call him, man. Like, come over, man. Let's play."
All right,
And
I'm
he's
jumping
off
in
right.
right now. I'm jumping in. I'm
Yeah.
gonna ask you directly. Why did you stop?
I, you know, I just, I would say I didn't love it as much as maybe, you know, I think I will be honest, like maybe in the last 2 or 3 years, I didn't want to be there. I My friends were gone. I didn't really. I was just kind of going through the motions. I was in a transition of careers as well. Like, you know, things were looking up for me at the hospital, and so, you know, I had to really think about the future. And I wasn't producing, right? So that's, you know, if I'm not producing music, there's only a certain trajectory that you can go, right? And um, you know, I don't, if I would have put the time, like, you know, I had so much opportunity to produce, and I never kind of took it. It was always like technical things that kind of were a hindrance to kind of getting stuff done, or not feeling stuff is good enough to actually get out. And I don't know if I would be a good, even if I could do everything and produce, I don't know if I would be a good producer, because I think I would not know when to let things go and just release them. You know, trying to perfect things too much, worry about what people think about that track or whatever, and just kind of let it go. So, you know, it's not for me. And then at the same time, I was kind of moving in a different trajectory at work. But that said, I look out in the crowd and I'm thinking, you know, there's a million people who would rather be doing this up here than me, and is it really fair to be taking the spot, right? Like, right? Am I like? There's a bunch of kids who are still coming out to see you, and they're so excited, and you're kind of like, well, yeah, you know, good. Like, here I am. You know, they would probably kill to have this spot, and maybe I'm just taking up space. And yeah, so that's kind of where I was at.
Did it hit you all at once, or was it grown on you like mold, like where you were like, this is this build up, and
Yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah,
did you have
yeah.
other
Just
shows that were still on the docket that were lined up that you had to make phone calls and say, listen, no,
no. It was kind of like it was
you
kind of
ran the
like
course, and then
I ran the course, and then not fully ran the course, but then obviously like Farsi's been bothering me a lot, and
I'm going there. I'm going there. I mean, it'd be crazy to think that I'm not going to go there. So I'm just
yeah,
listen. Decades have passed, and we're having this conversation. I'm not quite sure if that means something to you or not. I'm not saying that this is obviously we're here together. I just mean like we are here together. Like I mean we're fucking talking about this.
yeah,
So it's real. You're right. Farbs has brought it up. I know this. I heard it through the grapevine. Dan too. I know that the
yeah.
offers are there. So now that you've already gone, you did stuff. You did the hospital. You became a dad. Traveled around. Had some fun. Did Disneyland. It was cool. Okay.
So listen,
All right.
I will say a few things. I think that you've inspired me a little bit. I picked up a APC controller over the pandemic, and just kind of been toying with what that may sound like or what they may do. Um, I I'm not. Uh, I would say that I'm just kind of starting to get interested in what the capabilities are to be able to kind of like play a set off of Ableton, and be able to be, I think the capabilities are better than what you could do on probably two decks, and being able to kind of layer things and do kind of interesting things. I think it would not be, once again, I've been out of touch with what's going on in the scene for probably a good part of 9-10 years now, for sound wise. But at the same time, what if I were to do something? I would probably do something a little bit of like nostalgic, and have a lot of like interesting stuff pop up here and there. But it's you have the kids and time, and these
Yeah.
things come. But these are hobbies, right? Like you just try to figure out if you
That's
want to
just
do it.
it. I'm not saying
Yeah.
you know sell the house and squat in an underground utility room with Joe. But
Oh,
what I
is that my area right there? The middle little metal
there's a
furniture. I think
this
they
is pretty
stop there.
roomy back in this. I've got different angles for the show. Where tonight this is the position, but I could change it around real easy as well. It's like I was just talking about it. Utility room is a bit like Electric Circus. Electric Circus, you turn on the television set, and the show came on, and it looked like there was 500 people inside of a mid-range size club, and they're having it. And then you see it on the street, and it's a closet with
Yeah.
different podiums and leveled out, and so this some people are and other people are but
and, then and a
I
lot
can
of
move it around. I've got little things in here as well. Like like there's details depending on what, like the guy you are biz, the acid happy face. I got a Don Burns is with us.
oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
Gosh,
man, like but to be honest, like yeah, like I've thought about like I mean, people are all about controllers and things like that, and as much as I've thought about like, okay, well, there's like the perfectionist like DJing and things like that, but does it really matter at the end of the day? At the end of the day, it's what people want to hear, right? Like before I used to be very critical about beat matching, about and there's this whole kind of old man attitude. Oh, back in our day, we used to beat match off, and that these kids are cheating today. But really, does it matter? Isn't it all about, as kind of what you mentioned about like the listener? But for me, the listener experience, like whoa, like the risk of somebody train wrecking is going, like, how does that help the average ticket holder? That's not right. Like, if we're talking about sound, then why don't we give them the best that we can? I agree that some DJs that I see now that are like really just kind of like pressing play and doing this. That's probably the furthest end of it all. But I think I think that there's a lot of interesting stuff going on, and one thing I'm not a big fan of is the watching some of the Twitch, like the distractions, right? Like for me, at least personally, I want to see the DJ. I want to see what they're doing. I think people that do that well maybe are like, for me at least, are like DJ Rap, DJ Sneak, guy like this is it. Like I'm just playing records, and I want to see what you're doing, right? And but I don't need all the dancers here. I mean, I think that there's probably room for, something in the experience of like, immersive. Maybe that's a whole different ball game. But from what I see on the screens on some of these Twitch things, I'm like, do you really need that to sell yourself? I don't know.
I've wondered about the green screen and all the flying objects that are zinging and zapping past when we're already so immersed in a virtual experience. Do we really need to go and tip it right over the edge where it's like, none of it's real, so I mean, that's why I mean, some people like it. I just don't have those feelings.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Or are we just grumpy old men?
it's why
I don't
it's
think
why I
so.
said to you, the dance floor is not wrong. It's my belief, and for if you've got a group of people out there that are having a really great time with one thing or another, and you're not, that's fine. Like, I used to get really excited if I heard that there was, XYZ happening in a certain space the same night that I was booked to play at the opposite club. I'd be like, that's great. All those people are going to be over there. They're not going to be at our party. Woo! Like, this is going to be awesome. What are you telling me? Like, fuck, bring the competition on. Get them over there, man. They're like, yeah, I'm never going to that party. Be like, great. Don't come. I don't fucking want you there. Go to that show's going to be awesome, man. You hear about that show? Be like, aren't you playing the same night? Be like, no, that ain't real.
That sounds like the Breakfest way of promoting.
We're gonna go into what I would call the hardest question of Utility Room. Are you ready? We're gonna dig deep. No shovel required. Okay. I know right now that there's gonna be people that are gonna be grabbing pen and paper.
Oh, are we already at this point? I wasn't ready for this point. Oh, okay.
Yes. Yes,
Oh,
we are.
geez. I was supposed to write those down. Damn.
No.
Anyway.
You've got 3 records. 3.
Yeah, I know.
The records that you love, all right? They're never leaving your box, no matter what. In times of need when your dance floor is absolutely like, rescue me. Or everything's going great, but you want to dial it up to 10 because it's only at 9. You need the 10. What are these 3 records?
I knew these things too, and that's the memory.
Your expression was dynamite. I'm not here to stress you out, Colin. I swear, I'm really not.
Okay, let's just say, okay, well, while we go by like anything by the Freestylers would probably be 1 record, right? Like, so, right, like, you could get a floor jumping with the Freestylers, no problem, right? There was a track, you guys won't know it, and it just, I think it's called I Like Love by Solitaire, and it's a breaks mix, and it's not anything that I think any other breaks DJ had in their arsenal at all, but it was kind of like, it was a really, really kind of happy disco breakdown, and when I would drop that, like, and it was just kind of a twist, right? You could just drop that, the beat kind of was like, and it was like, it was a common beat, so you can mix it in with anything. But then all of a sudden, it flips into this really happy disco rainy kind of thing. So that was always something that I loved to have in my bag. And then
Disco Rain.
it would rain disco and like no, sorry, the name of the track was called I Like Love.
No,
I Like Love, and I think it's by Solitaire.
put me in that storm,
But
man.
yeah,
Put me in that storm.
but it was just it felt like it just felt you just felt good after that track. And then I guess, oh man, these are tough. This is tough, even when I know it was coming. Like that how did I not
The way I cue
just jot
things
that
up so
down?
that when it happens, you're like, wait a second,
I don't
we were just
know. Oh man. What
strategy.
else is anyway? Uh, let me think on that.
Don't worry, just take your time. The show's running.
Loose caboose,
Just
whatever.
keep it going on. Do you still have all your records?
I have all the good ones. Like I have like well,
Really?
you know what it's like. I mean,
No, I
when
don't.
we
I
were
got fucking nuked by a flood in my house that swallowed
oh,
thousands of pieces of wax from me.
oh,
Stuff that
I'm so
I
sorry.
mean, if I had it, I loved it. That was my attitude. I moved so many times that with every move, it was like I was getting rid of records. So it didn't become about it. Like for some people, it's a numbers game. Like they want to be like inches, 12 of
No,
them. I got them.
no,
And it's like
but right? Like when you went to the record store when you were playing that much, you were buying like big hitters. You were buying fillers. You were buying like at least I was like when I was playing at System with Dave, we'd have to fill like 3 or 4 hours, and so there would be a lot of like this is a great track that will get me to here, right? Like these are just tracks that will get me just keep the crowd bumping before we get to like something big hitter. So a lot of filler, good filler. Like, but I got rid of a lot of that, right? Because I'm like, hey, if I'm ever gonna play again, am I gonna be playing filler tracks? Am I gonna be playing 4 or 5 hour sets? Probably not, right?
I don't
So
know about this word if you just used. We're going to go with when. So, and when you were talking about being frustrated with the mix, and I was making the joke about how tapes have been turfed out the window because you were like, I've recorded over it 3 times, and no matter what, it's not going to sound good now. I got to get a new blank tape. Today which is funny because this episode's going to be airing like down the road. It's not but this weekend I'm well, the weekend that is now, which is then, I'm playing for Make It Funky. And so I'm
oh,
trying I'm trying to fit in. I'm trying to fit in because I don't want to turn up and just do what I would typically do, which is not really think about what it is. More often than not, if I'm going to a party or something, there's if it's a club night, then there's other talent. It's not really catered to a style of sound. Like, again, referencing, I'm digressing, but Breaks Fest and having an all breaks night, like I think to myself, when I see announcements for nights that are popular that are happening at venues, it's not about the genre. It's having very popular names that are going to get butts, onto the floor. Um, you know, the nights that we had in the mid '90s and early '80s, these nights were it was a trance night. This was a breaks night. This is a jungle night. So it didn't matter who the DJs were that they were coming in. If you were going to do
yeah.
it, then you were doing what that night was about. You weren't just doing you, right? Otherwise, everyone that was there for that style would be like eject. So
Yeah.
so with breaks with the make it funky thing, I'm like how I'm trying because I want to fit in. I got stuck because I was saying before, the more things change, the more they stay the same. This is true even in a digital world. Just because I'm on Ableton Live doesn't mean that it's so what the beats are gonna line up. I could still trigger something at the wrong time. It's gonna still either sound like shoes in the dryer or just it
I'm
just it
learning. I'm learning that myself now, right?
right.
So
So
I'm
and
like, oh, there's a lot of risk to this.
hours. I did a sesh last night. I played it back. I was like, some of these tracks, the arrangement is not right. Fuck this set. Try it again. 6 times today. I had to walk away at one point. I got up on my Facebook. I'm like, I suck, you know, and I wrote something along the lines like, and I'm like, I need some optimism. What would you do? And you know, I'm leaving it to the hands of Facebook, which, you know, unfortunately it's just on the Jello page, so I think it's going to be okay. I don't know about asking that question in the regular sphere of Facebook. It might get some strange results.
Mhm.
But I nailed it, and there's tons of fuck ups in the mix, Colin. Tons.
Yeah.
I played Fatboy Slim. Everybody needs a 303, uh, which I love, and I think is a super mighty breakbeat track, and I love the 303. So yay! Um, and right in the middle of it, I fucking hit a cue point wrong, and the cursor for the track jumped right to the end of the track, leaving me like 18 seconds to fucking mix out, and I'm like 30 or 40 minutes in the mix or something. I don't know. I'm like, I'm in the mix. I'm looking at it, I'm just like, okay, fuck it. Here we go. So, and I hope two things, hopefully. First, the one thing I hope is that someone's going to look at it and be like, but isn't that, I thought he's on a computer. Well, how did that mistake happen? And be like, it's real and it's really happening and you can definitely screw up, you know? And then
Yeah.
also the other thing is, which is where I leave you with this inspiration, which is that the show must go on.
Absolutely. You can't.
I'm
What are
talking
you gonna
about
do,
you.
right?
I'm talking about you.
Oh.
I'm not just talking about me.
um.
All right. And I think to myself at
No.
this time, this is actually a great time for you to keep jamming digitally and fucking message me if you get stuck. I'll be happy to help if I can. I'm no genius, but I mean, I don't know. I've dabbled, and I feel like there's an opportunity. Listen, I think things are going to be fucked up until summer 2022. I know no one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I sound like a bearer of bad news. It's just, you know, the cold season's going to come back after school starts up, and it's going to be a little
Absolutely.
weird for a second, for sure. But then I feel like summer 2022 is going to be like we're most. I'm
Bang.
assuming mostly vaxxed and ready to escape the doldrums of the pandemic. And
So you gave me another year to work on skills, is what you're saying. Like, hey, see, you got another year on.
that's exactly what I'm saying to you. I'm saying you've got time to
Yeah.
really think this through. And you know what? It's not. Let me tell you something, man. One great night could change 500 lives like that, Carl. That's what I think.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe enough fuel for you to think to yourself, treat it like Christmas. Maybe Big League Chu only comes around once a year. That might be a fucking great gift.
Maybe, but I don't know. It's a, you know, it's. I was, you know, I'm not saying I never say never, right? And I think that you know, when the opportunity presents itself, or I feel ready, then maybe it will.
Everybody just
So
heard that
definitely,
right
I mean,
now. So
yeah, it's funny though, because I don't know when the last time we saw each other in person is. And one of my sons came down here and before, and he's like, "Oh, who are you talking to?" I'm like, "I'm talking to a guy. His name's Jello." And he's like, "Jello, that's awesome!" Right? And then he's like, "When was the last time you saw him?" I was like, I just sometime in 2011, probably.
I was going to
And
say
like way before
2005
he
or
was born.
2000. No, I guess it would be after 2006. 2005,
Yeah,
I just saw we were on the flyer together for System Soundbar when I recorded live at System.
yeah.
I
I mean,
forgot that Basement Twins was on the flyer. Do you want me to get you? I can get you excited right now. I got Basement Twins just remixed a song for me and Fowler.
yeah, yeah,
Brand
yeah,
new Basement
definitely.
Twins, and it's fucking ridiculous.
Oh, it's great to hear that those
Oh
guys
my
are still
god,
doing stuff too.
so dope. I really
Oh
appreciate you
man,
and your
like,
time tonight. You know that.
yeah. Well, you got more questions? I'm still here. I got beers if you want.
You got
You know, where do you want to go?
you got something you want to say?
I don't know. What else was there? Just some topics that you guys were talking about. I'm just trying to think
There's
back
something that
to
rubs
some.
you.
You know, no, not really. But the other things that I guess maybe that changed for me were, you know, I was things that kind of like got me off. I mean, my best times were system soundbar. I think the long sessions, like 2 or 3 hour sessions with Sadler. Um, and you know, I think if you ask me to kind of look at like what's the best time, I would say probably like for sound or what, like, I mean, I've like played so many different styles within there. Like, funky breaks was like breakfast kind of thing, right? Then there's like the deeper kind of progressive type breaks that was going on at System. And, you know, I think that style for me, if like I was to come back or do stuff, would be, more of like what I would want to do. And and not to knock the make it funky stuff, but it's when the turntables were the other way that kind of, for me at least, when they flipped them the other way, then like there's, I was the
Hip
kind of
hop
person that
style,
wanted to
like
ride.
not techno style, hip hop style.
Yeah, yeah, and like I don't know, I always felt like I was a house DJ playing breaks, right? Like I was like a guy who would just like love to ride long mixes and just like hold and just like put my, like I would never touch the platter. Like that was the thing for me. I don't know. Never touch the platter was always my thing, and I still cringe when I see people touch the platter. But right, and I'm like, how do you not know
It's fucking pitch
don't touch
controls
the
right there,
platter?
man.
Yeah,
It's
man.
right there. It's right
And you
there.
just kind of sit and you're like, that's the fun of it all. You're just gliding it to the right. Anyway, but so that, that changed it. Like that doesn't make it fun for me anymore when you're just kind of like, doing this and, and it was a little bit, the other piece I think that ran its course was, when you guys talk about, um, what's the death of the scene, or, and I may have contributed because I was a big hitter guy, right? Like, you're playing big things and you want people. I always played, if I were playing a big party, I'd always play things that people wanted to hear. And so I was, in some cases at those nights, I was not necessarily pushing the boundaries. I was playing what people were expecting to
Is
hear,
that
right?
something that
Because I
has to
always thought,
happen
if you're
every
going to,
set, though? Is that something you have to do? You have to be a boundary pusher with every instance?
no, but
Okay.
the thing is, but I recognize that I may have contributed to maybe the downfall of it, but also I think people don't realize that smoking was another thing that changed the dance floor. So at least something that I noticed at System Soundbar was smoking, right?
You mean the
Um,
stopping of it, or
it the no, so it coincided, I think, whenever the no smoking in indoors happened. So you didn't have a captive audience anymore, right? So people weren't willing to kind of like go
oh,
on the ride with you, right? So hey, when you have those filler moments that are supposed to kind of like lay the seeds for, the peaks, right? During those moments, people were like, "Hey, you going for smoke? I'm going for smoke," and all of a sudden your room would be empty because everybody would go for smoke. And then like 10 minutes later, they'd be back, and then you just so happen to be that's the point where you're thinking about, okay, well, I'm going to bring the hitter in, and then all of a sudden you're playing hitters just to keep them in the room, right? Because they're not willing to go on that journey with you anymore, right? Like
wild, man. I
they're
never
thinking
had
about,
this thought in my brain ever. This is amazing.
like it was huge, and you would notice it very clearly at System, and then there would be times where Dave and I were like, is that the last one? Like, are they coming back? Or it's like, are we done for the night, right? So it was a very interesting concept, the idea that um they weren't willing to go on the ride with you. And then then I think that kind of got into this idea of like the short attention span, right? The short attention span of people at the clubs, and people just wanted to hear these kind of fast mixes, the blog, the blog house and all that stuff. But it was kind of, and then you had to keep them in the room with the three style type DJing, and so it was all, yeah, like for there, it's like it was all attention span. I think that really
Was
kind of killed.
Do you
That
feel
was one of the
challenged
contributors
by the
back to the thing.
tastes of people that are out there right now? Is it still a challenge for you?
Well, I think I was fine with it but I didn't really like the idea of, because I mean, like I always had hits, right? So I could just play the hits, but then after a while, you just kind of like, am I just playing hits just to keep them here? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not fun anymore. Like that's what like system soundbar, those long sessions was something that I really like.
This is fucking deep.
I think both Dave and I would kind of look at, and what was great with working with Dave was that we would play off of each other, right? So like, I might play big hitters, and then he would kind of take things in a different direction. Like I want to go deep, and then I would go like continue the deep, and then kind of go up the valley. And then we had different ideas of what big hitters were, so we'd have to play off each other. And well, it's like playing with another DJ with different, almost similar things. And so it's that that's one thing. And another thing I think that people really that I was talking to Dave about it when he came over for lunch the other day. He's like, well, what do you think killed the scene? And he brought up some good points too. He's like, well, you have a genre, a breakbeat, right? And it's like, yeah, these are breaks. And then within that genre, you have like funky breaks. And then you have like progressive breaks, right? And then that's fine. And then so like, okay, well, those two can coexist. And then you started getting into like two-step. And it's like Florida, two-step, all this other stuff. And it just, you're subdividing an audience that is just there's not enough sustainability, right? Like, here's a genre, it's already a niche. Yeah, let's chop it up into 10 other niches and have nights just solely on them. And he made a good point. He's like, yeah, so who would you go see? Like Marcus playing two-step? Yeah, hell yeah, I'd go see Marcus playing two-step. But like, is that sustainable? I don't know, probably not, right? Like, it's not a big enough scene to in Toronto. I don't think it was a big enough scene to kind of be chopped up that way, and was meant to be chopped up that way. So, that's another contributing factor, I think, is that the scene was only so big, and it was.
You're talking about breaks. You're talking about breaks specifically.
Breaks specifically, and then as Dan mentioned, other parties were more interesting by the time, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, fast forward to today or weeks ago, and there's hundreds of people underneath a bridge with a put together sound system, raving.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's alive. It's alive.
Yeah. And I'm happy to see it.
Yeah, of course.
Go ahead.
Of course. I mega FOMO on missing it. Like, it was like, it's real. Like, I saw the video and I thought to myself, they're fucking doing it. They're really doing it. Like, and for a second I was wondering, like, what's up in Toronto? I see a lot of people, the first step is to want to be the performer, to want to be a DJ. The first step is not to want to be a promoter. And I've talked about it here on the show. If you've seen the episodes, promoters are they're the DJ's DJ. They're the, if particularly the curating style promoter, the ones that are very interested. Right.
Right. Those guys don't, for me, you have yours probably, but like Dose is probably our common, the Metro guys for me, and the idea of like, who would have like, for me, I was like, I just want to get into the club or the party that these guys are hosting, let alone be the DJ for these guys, right? And those guys, they were pushing a sound that really resonated with me, and then they went to the more of the West Coast house kind of style. But they still showed love because they wanted, they wanted to showcase that break sound. Aaron and Steve and Wayne, they really, as much as, they were, their headliners were kind of that West Coast house, they really still had that kind of like, our roots are breaks, right? And I think that's why I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to play for those guys. That's for sure. Like, oh man, I don't know. I've been telling a story, I think, recently about that airplane hangar, just getting a call from, Aaron, or Steve, I think it was Steve that night. I was once again at the hospital and like, hey, do you want to play? You know, at that time, every kid's dream is to probably play for Dose, right? So you get a call and like someone's like, hey, Barry Weaver, you can't show up. Do you want to play tonight? What? Sure. Where? I'll just call back later. I'll tell you where it is. And
Cancellations could be the best
you know,
calls. They can be. You know, be like, this person
oh
can't
my
make it. Be like,
god,
that's too bad.
that like, oh, I hope Barry gets better soon, but it's just not tonight.
Yeah.
And then yeah, and then
Missed
you
the
know,
flight,
getting to
hey?
play sucks. You know, you know, if I knew that well, I'd get people to get them all cranked up the night before. That's for sure, and do that a little more. But you know, and then getting the opportunity to play at that hangar in Downsview, the Biz Marquee show, rest in peace. But you know, that was one of the, and what was great was that I got cut off that morning, right? I got cut off morning, 7:30 sun. We got to play a couple more tracks. This huge opportunity to play in an airplane hangar. Who, you know, sun coming up, and then them coming to you saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Chu. You know what? We'll make it up to you. Like, we'll put you on the next bill." And I'm like, "Okay, sure." And the next bill was freaking at Automotive Center, like half 8,000 people, and coming on last and being like, "Okay, well, I guess they owed me." Maybe not this much, but like it worked out, right? Like, and you know, that was a great experience, right? And then same with guys like Johnny, who have like, I think, you know, with John, he was kind of like at the end of his kind of time performing. He was kind of like more into promoting at that time, and he wanted to pass. He really loved breaks, and I don't think people really understand John's dedication and love for breaks, right? Um, and so I think he really took me under his wing and kind of like was like, Chew, you do this. Like, there's Czech on the West Coast, you do this here, man. Like, you know, make it happen. And he gave me every opportunity and like gave me records here and there too, and just like, hey, what's that? Yeah, I'll go find you. You know, and so just all around good support from him. But yeah, some crazy stories, that's for sure, and really good memories.
I think that the next time we're going to see you on the show, we're going to have some idea of Big League Chu playing music for a bunch of people. That's what I think.
That's what I heard. But anytime you wanna, yeah, you wanna do this, I was thinking like you want to do a panel with Dan. I think that might be pretty interesting.
I think that would be
Because he
actually a ton of
might be my
fun, and
memory.
if we get Dave as well, and Marty,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
would be
yeah.
that might be a jam.
If you want to do a panel,
Yeah, everyone
yeah,
all together. I'm into the idea.
yeah, that'd be cool.
Do you have any presence online at all right now, or when you
Yeah. So pandemic has forced me to kind of put out these mixes,
forced
and they're
you
studio mixes. So I'll be. So the idea that I came up with is they're called Retro Respect,
the bubbling up
and
on
there's
you,
Retro Respect
man?
Volume 1. So Retro Respect Volume, go to Big League Chu. Sorry, I started a Facebook page during the pandemic, and so just putting up old stuff. But then this idea that wouldn't it be nice to take a point in time? You know what the big hitters were at that time now in retrospect. So the retrospect series looks back at points in time. So I think the first one was like 96 to 99, and it looked at the rave scene, the stuff that was being played that we would want to play in raves. So the big chemical type breaks, sounds, and what are the big hitters there, and then putting that all together in one mix. So that was the first one. And I try to write a little story about that. And then Retrospect 2 was kind of like was focused around Limelight, stuff that you might have heard at Limelight. So telling the story about how like standing in line, just trying to get in, trying to trying to hustle. Do you remember Huey? I don't know if you remember Huey, the bouncer. Just trying to get your friends in, pay them $20, trying to get into the club, and getting to Renee, the door Nazi, and just trying to squeeze your way in there the best you could on a rammed night on a Wednesday. But in reality, eventually things turn out and you're actually playing there. Can you imagine? Like, you're mind blown, right? And then so I thought about those years and just put together some tracks that kind of encapsulate that night. And then the third of the series that I think it came out in the summer last year was Breakfest. So things you would have heard at Breakfest, and the story of Francis and Pat, and how I didn't think these two guys were were really legit about trying to make money or trying to make a crowd or trying to make a thing. So if you listen to these mixes, like hopefully the idea is that it takes you back to like, this is what Breakfast is all about. You could like listen to like 10 minutes of it and be like transported back into the Elmo, or you take 10 minutes and you transport it back to Limelight, or that kind of idea. And I think the first one is a very kind of it kind of reckons back to my hero of the break scene, who was not really breaks later on, but DJ Dan, right? So the first one is kind of a very DJ Dan tribute kind of piece. So that's what I'm up to. I've made a volume 4, but volume 4 I've been sitting on for a little while. It's been a little bit difficult because volume 4 is kind of like a transition. It's a transition one. Volume 5 is easy, right? It's system. So it's like all like, you know what it's going to be, like the ones you're going to choose, and it's already like there's a massive list to choose from. But volume 4 is kind of like it's kind of like out of hand, turbo, that kind of period, and it's a little bit different because the production qualities between the two periods are different, right? All of a sudden you're going to really good production quality from kind of mediocre to crappy production qualities. And so it's a little bit difficult to pick and choose and figure out what's going to go together nice. So volume 4, I know some people have been bothering me to kind of get volume 4 out there. It's been done for a while. I just don't know if I like it myself. But rest assured, volume 5 and volume 6, when they come out, they'll just spit out like, because they're easy. Like there's like 70 tracks, 80 tracks to choose from, but it's just how they go together. And they all have a little story. So
listen to you.
Yeah, pandemic will do wonders. Right?
Is that what it is, or is it that it's what's the gangster movie? Every time they try to take me out, it pulls me back in. It's why pretty much always one of the first questions is me asking what's the vampire bite? We all got bit, and when the bite happened, we thought to ourselves, I know I have a dozen times. Fuck this, but the heart is too strong, and as a result, it's too strong. It's too strong. And you know what? I'll say this. Perhaps this is part of your artistic journey. Perhaps the idea was that you were supposed to come in, rise, elevate, escalate, rave, and then punch out. Take some time.
So you were setting me up. You were setting me up with Utility Room for the last 4 months to be able to for the last year, as part of this route.
I've often remarked, because there's been a few times people have been like, "Where's it going?" And I have an answer. Obviously, I wouldn't share that right now, but I would say this is that there's a bit of a Christopher Nolan vibe happening. It feels like all of a sudden the story's over here, and then it's over here, and then it goes over here, and it somehow all ends up wrapping up into this place that makes sense. and this is it. I think to myself that it's true what I was about to say. Maybe the idea that you had to step back for some people, they step back for a month. Some people step back for a year. For you, 10. And
I understand now. Why people vanish and why they, I've had a lot of introspection, thinking about, why it is. Before I'd be like, well, that person just vanished. and I understand why, because it's just like it's such a like a piece of your identity. Um, and sometimes you want to you know, if you know me like as a mosaic, like I'm all over the place. I have a little piece of this, and my lives are like, if people knew what I did, you know, on my professional side, they'd be like, "Whoa, that's pretty cool, man." And then the professional people are like, "Hey, tell us about that," right? So you know, it's they're worlds that I managed to kind of, they're slowly weaving their way together.
It could be a bit like Fight Club, I guess, metaphorically. You know, it's something that, you know, this isn't your, it's not your day thing, but it also puts you in an incredible advantage from DJs that are just DJs. You know, for example, you know, if you've got something that where you're like, you know, you're not fueled by the money, you know, and clearly your passion is absolutely intact. You know, hearing, just listening to you talk about what it is that you started up, and like, because of the pandemic, bullshit. Pandemic, you give it a reason if you like to me, Colin, but it's not. Come on, it's in your heart, just like me. It's flowing through our veins. There's no escaping this shit. I'll see you in a fucking walker. How about that? Okay, in the old age home, both of us, we sit there, be like, "Are you ready?" Be like, "I'm ready." And we'll just both sync up our iPods or something like this. Rich Friend's like, "Yeah," get our shuffle on.
uh man.
Not wrong.
Yeah, so anytime you want to talk shop,
We're
I'm
we're
here.
we're we're
But
talking. We're shopping, and then I know. I listen. I'm not going to say it. I'm going to see it and hear it. And I'm stoked that you were able to be with us tonight for sure. Fuck, let's do round two. And I'm into the panel, of course. We have been absolutely enamored with your storytelling. It's been absolutely awesome sauce. We are here in the utility room, Big League Chu. Y'all out there watching with us, thank you very much for being with us in the show. You are truly special. Make sure that you are liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, doing all the things that make the room go boom. And we will see you next week.